So how did you go about building it? I mean, how did you go about actually getting the people to invest?
What I did is this. I said, there's an old saying in Washington, D.C., when you're getting kicked out of town, get out in front and pretend you're leading a parade. What does that mean? It means take advantage of the situation you find yourself in. You're getting kicked out of town, pretend you're leading a parade. I was living in Washington. I wasn't credible enough to go to New York and start an investment firm. So I said, I understand companies heavily affected by the federal government better than those guys in New York. Sounded good. I'm not sure it was true. And then ultimately, I began in the beginning to bring in some government people. I brought in former Secretary of State Jim Baker, former Secretary of Defense Frank Carlucci.
So you had relationships.
Yes, George Herbert Walker Bush. They were better known. Nobody would want to hear me make a speech at dinner. But if I said Jim Baker's going to make a speech, people would show up. But I did two things that changed the face of private equity with my partners. One is private equity was a small cottage business. And we basically, you had one fund and you did one fund and 4 years later you raised another one. I decided to have multiple funds, a buyout fund, a growth capital fund, a real estate fund, and so have an institutionalized the business by having multiple funds, and I could have afford a back office, a fundraising team, a accounting team that would take care of all the funds. And secondly, I decided to globalize it. So I went around the world to make a team in Europe, Eastern Europe, in Latin America, Japan, Asia, and so forth. So we had a global business and a heavily institutionalized business, and that's how we grew it. And we also obviously had a good track record.
No doubt. And that sounds a little more than luck to me. That's pretty brilliant. That's great strategy, good promotion, and then building relationships. And I want to talk about that later on, because one of the things I admire so much about you today is how you build relationships. You do this work with the political characters. You might be the last moderate left in America where you bring all the characters together, connect them, get them to eat and hang out together, and get the Republicans and the Democrats together. You're the last of you're Switzerland.
Well, what you're referring to is I host a dinner once a month for members of Congress only, and I interview a great author there, and members come. Most recently, I interviewed Bill McRaven, who was the man who led the search for and the capture of Osama bin Laden. And we had 250 members of Congress there.
Brilliant. And I know they love it, and I've heard feedback. I have relationships on both sides of the aisle, and they go, Rubenstein's is the one place we're all allowed to get together and hang out. It's so congratulations to you. As you know, you've come a long way. You've come a long way from that row house in Baltimore, my friend. Thanks for watching. If you want more tips on how to think, feel, and do better, check out these videos too. Oh, by the way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave us a like if you enjoy the content.